Hello! So I have been kind of silent on this channel lately. My injury has really thrown me for a loop and it's been hard to film videos. I'm on the bed again because I just can't stand for long periods of time and I can't kneel at all. So hopefully I got my stitches out this morning and I'm going to an orthopedist about my knee in a couple of days. Hopefully we'll get it resolved quickly. I can get back to filming videos for y'all. But since my youngest had his first day of preschool today, I thought I'd take advantage of the silence and address a question that comes up all the time in the Facebook groups. Should I get a Filofax or should I get a traveler's notebook? Which is better? Now, this is kind of a hard question to answer because there are so many different variables. It depends on how you're planning on using it, what you're planning on putting in it, and what kind of style you like. So I decided I would make a video so that I can hopefully help people on YouTube searching and have a way to reference quickly all of my thoughts on the topic. So for starters, I wanted to just lay these out and show you some of the size differences because that's a pretty big point for what you're going to get. So I do not have all of the sizes that they come in for traveler's notebooks because they're coming up with new sizes all the time, but I wanted to show kind of the standard ones. And I'll start here with the Filofaxes. This is A5, Personal, Pocket, and Mini. I got out all of my Filofax ochre Malden so that you can see the same type of binder, what the comparison in size is. Now, the A5 and the Personal and the Pocket I know are still being produced. I'm not positive whether the Mini is still actively being produced. I know you can still get them places. There used to also be a desk fax size that is no longer available. But these three are the standard ones. Now, in the Traveler's Notebook size, there is the standard, and this is slightly larger just as far as being wider than a standard in order to allow for more inserts. There is the Passport size, which is the other standard Midori size. And one of the other sizes that Midori makers have come up with is Field Notes, so that it can hold the Field Note size notebooks. So that's just slightly bigger than the Passport. It's the same width, but it is slightly taller to allow for that added height. So just to compare these for you right quick. So the standard Midori size, see if I can get it in the camera frame well, is about A5 size as far as height. The paper size is A5 size for both of them. See that well or not? And then you can see the difference in the width there. But the width of the standard Midori is about the same as the personal size width, though it is definitely much taller, especially when you compare the paper size. Let's see if I can get that. I can see it too. So, hopefully you can see that. I'm having a hard time angling my body without being hurt. Now, the pocket size of the Filofax is pretty close in height to in fact, it's exactly the same in height as the Field Note size Midori, because you're not going to find a Midori in this height. It is a little bit wider, but once you get the actual inserts lined up, once you see the actual paper size, then the paper size for the Midori is actually wider. The inserts of the pocket size Filofax fit perfectly in the Passport size. So even though these are smaller, they're the same paper size between the Passport size and the pocket size of the Filofax. And then the Mini is kind of in a little class on its own. You can see it compared to the smallest of the Midori sizes, the Passport. And so it is smaller than that, and then the paper size, of course, is going to be even smaller because it has to make room for the rings and then extra place for tabs and everything. So for all of the Filofax sizes, it is smaller as far as the actual paper size. So I can show here, and if you look at this notebook here, these are the same size, the actual paper and the amount of writing space that you have. So the most comparable between the two different sizes are the pocket size Filofax and the Passport size Midori. So which one do I prefer? Well, that depends on what I'm using it for. If I am doing something where I want to be, let me clear some of these out of the way, where I want to be taking individual pages out all the time. For example, or adding individual pages. So for example, in my reading journal here, I am constantly adding books to this section. just all the time. Anytime I finish a new book, almost every time, at least every other time, I'm adding a page in here, so because I alphabetize them. I wouldn't be able to do that in a traveler's notebook because the traveler's notebooks have the booklets. I could tip them in, I could leave blank spaces, blank pages in between, but I would never really know how much space I needed. So in order to have the same amount of organization, of course in a traveler's notebook, I could just not alphabetize them, not worry about that at all, and just write down the books as I read them. But I prefer to have that sort of a system. Likewise, in my A5, which is household management, I have all the stuff for my kids' schools. And so every month they send out a new schedule. And so I rip the old one out, and I'm not showing that obviously, both because we just started school and so I don't have all of that, but also because it has the names of my kids' schools on there. But I can just rip out the old one, pop it open, add a new one. If I get a field trip permission form or something else that I only need for a short period of time, I can just pop it in, and that way I can take it out easily without having to tear a page out of a notebook. Also, I can size things down, so I get home, letter-size sheets of paper get sent home. All I have to do is scan it, print it out A5 size as a PDF, and trim and pop it in. So it makes it a lot easier to add things with the Filofax, to add and remove individual sheets of paper. However, say you're using this as your main planner. You get to the end of a year and you want to, or even just the end of a month, depending on how much you want to keep in your system at a certain time, if you're taking out the old ones, they're just a bunch of individual sheets. Whereas in a traveler's notebook, once you're done, you pop out the book and it's already ready and archived. It's already stitched together or stapled together, depending on what kind of insert you have. And you can just pop this into a box. You don't have to worry about individual sheets of papers. You don't have to worry about losing something or it making a mess or finding it appropriately. It's much easier to store. Same with that, if you want to, say I only needed one of my notebooks when I was going somewhere, I can just pop it out. I don't have to worry about stray sheets or something getting lost. I'm much less likely to do that in a Filofax because I'd want to have a way to keep the individual pages together. So the summary of that point is that if you're taking an individual or removing an individual sheet of paper, ring binders are definitely the way to go because it's easier to do that. If you're taking out a group of papers or an entire section or a month or a year of your calendar, it's easier to do that in a traveler's notebook. So let's talk storage. So the traveler's notebook comes as just a flap of leather with holes in it and elastic. That's all that you're getting with your purchase of the traveler's notebook. The Filofax comes with all sorts of pockets and zippers. All the different models have different things. You got, of course, the rings. You've generally got at least one pin loop. You've got slips for notepads. There are all sorts of different features that individual ring binders have. But in general, you have some storage built in. As a general rule, the standard, especially the standard Midori, you have to add on their plastic pockets you can add on. Some of the makers do add on pockets, and I'll show that in just a second. But the standard Midori style is just a flap of leather with no storage. So people, in order to have storage, they purchase folders, there are zip envelopes, and other things that you can buy additionally to add some storage, but that also adds some bulk because the traveler's notebook isn't necessarily expecting to have that extra storage put into it. As I said, some makers do have built-in storage. So the Giglio Giramondo is one that I have that has pockets. I believe this is the only traveler's notebook now that I have that had pockets. I still had a Chic Sparrow Deluxe, but I sold that one. But that has pockets that are sewn in. You are often paying more though. For example, I mentioned Chic Sparrow. The Classic is less expensive than the Deluxe that has the pin loop and the pockets. And even if you have pockets, it doesn't guarantee you're going to have a pin loop. Again, you can purchase a clip-on pin loop, you can make your own, but it's not something that comes standard. As a general rule though, the traveler's notebooks are cheaper than a leather Filofax. You can buy cheaper Filofaxes or you can get them used. And there are ones made of all sorts of different materials, just like there are different materials for traveler's notebooks. But as a general rule, a leather traveler's notebook is going to be less expensive than a leather Filofax because there's more leather generally, there are the ring mechanisms you're paying for, there's a lot of extras that you're paying for with the Filofax. in addition to just the name. So as far as options, there are a lot more options for customization in the Traveler's Notebook. There are so many different options of ring binders. There are different brands. There are different models and sizes within the different brands. But if you want something made perfectly for your specifications, it's hard to find a ring binder maker. There is the Vanderspec organizer that they have a lot more options than some of the other makers do. But even then, it's a lot harder to get a completely customized, and it's more expensive to get a completely customized ringed binder. With the Fidoris, there are so many makers out there that are very talented with so many different options that are willing to do different stitching colors, different leather types and colors, different number of strings, all sorts of different sizes, custom sizes, and so there are a lot more options when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to what I prefer, right now I am in a mix of the two. I'm still using my Midori as my main planner, and so here I have all of the built-in storage that I loved from the Malden and from the ringed binder, but I have the flexibility to take out entire notebooks. So I don't have to worry about, in here I'm generally not adding individual sheets, and if I am, like here's an example that I found, a seasonal cleaning list for cleaning the entire house in 30 days. And so I wanted to add that in here, and so I just took some washi and tipped it in. If you're doing that occasionally, that's not going to bulk it up that much. If you're having to tip in an individual sheet all the time, like on a daily basis, then you might be better served with a ring binder where you can just pop open the rings and put it in. Both of them have the benefit over a spiral bound planner that you can take them out if you're a decorator or you just don't like rings or something in the middle getting in the way. With a ringed binder, you can pop open the rings and take whatever the pages are you're working on out to write on them. So a lot of people complain about rings getting in the way, especially left-handed or right-handed people writing on the left side. But it's an easy fix just to pop open the rings, not like if you have a spiral or coil-bound planner like an Erin Condren or a Day Designer or some of the other popular spiral brands. Those, you can't just pop out the page you're working on. So that's not really a benefit or a deficit for either of these, because if you are having a hard time writing on, say you're writing on the first notebook and you have a really chunky one, you can just pop out that notebook if you're having trouble writing on that surface. So I use, as I said, and I've shown in my planner collection video, I use all of these for different purposes. Some are just notebooks like this. This one is from Annika Hamby. It's the Damask, and I got it in the Sherlock version of the inverted print. And so this is just my brain dump notebook. I also have a couple, this fits the scout books in addition to the Midori passport size notebooks. So I also have a couple of scout books in here that are short stories just to have something fun on the go. This is my main planner. This is now my homesteading binder. Once I finish getting it set up, look for a full setup review on that. And so I'm using, this is my spiritual journal, and I have a couple others that are all in use. But I'm still using my Filofaxes. I have these two, which are binders for my kids, kind of like scrapbooks for them. And so I can put in an individual sheet, individual picture of them, because I have a picture for each year. I can add that in. I can add in more pieces of paper to do their quotes or their yearly check-ins, or my A to Z tabs. If I'm adding a new topic, I can just add another sheet of paper. That's really easy to do in these. This is still my home management. I have the kids' schedule, as I said earlier. I can pop in anything the teacher sends home that I need to keep. And here, of course, as I mentioned, my book binder. So I all the time adding and taking away, not really taking away, but I'm all the time adding pages to this. And it would just be more difficult if I was trying to do that and maintain the same level of organization in a traveler's notebook. You can't go wrong either way. Either way, there are wonderful systems. I've used both of these as my main planner at one point or another. Ultimately, I did find that the Traveler's Notebook, especially for archiving purposes and for the ability to keep organized and have a lot more stuff in there, the Traveler's Notebook system does work better for me. Sorry, this is in a Filofax, so appearances can be deceiving, but since I'm using the Traveler's Notebook system in this Filofax, I consider it a Traveler's Notebook. But the ring binders definitely have their place, and a lot of people stay happy and have archiving systems and have things that work for them to make a Filofax their main planner. So again, either way you can't go wrong. There are pros and cons of both, but there are also ways to make both work for you, like converting it to a Midori or getting a traveler's notebook with pockets or whatever else you find that works. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that it was helps you to think about what works for you. I'd love to hear if you've gone from one to another. I know some people, they start at Traveler's Notebooks and end up at ring binders, so people go both way on this journey. If you have a preference, if you think of a pro or con that I left out, please leave it below. Leave it below in the comments and let me know. If you thought it was a fun video, give it a thumbs up, and I hope to have more videos up for you now that both kids have started school and I'm hopefully on the road to recovery. We can hopefully get back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Have a wonderful day. Bye.